Good evening and welcome to Channel 8 News. I'm your anchor Nick Fortino, and today we will have a special story for you about a consumer issue that many people face but don't quite understand the process, and that is overbooking of flights. Now, many of you probably have experienced a time where you're going on vacation or going on a business trip and you hear over the intercom, may we have 2 passengers volunteer to give up their seats because we have overbooked the flight. Now, the problem with this is that airlines overbook in order to fill the seats because they think that somebody will not end up showing up or something along those lines. Now we have a special segment for you today called Channel Nate's News, Investigative Journalism with Nate Halstead. Nate?
Hello, Nick. We're doing a special story today on Channel Nate News on a consumer issue that we feel often gets overlooked here in the U.S. Overbooking. Have you ever been kicked off your flight before? Today we're here at Iowa State University to ask some students at random what they feel like how overbooking should be held, how it should be handled, and what they really know about these cheating airlines. How would you feel about overbooking? So you're going home. Were you going home this last weekend?
Yes, I was.
And now all of a sudden you don't get to go home because someone has already bought your ticket, or you both bought a ticket, but they get on and you don't, just out random because airlines sell more than they actually have, so they don't lose money. What's your opinion on that?
Like, I wouldn't be happy, but like, you have to kind of look at it both ways. Like, look at the company's like standpoint too, and like even though if like you don't get what you want, but the company gets the total profit and everything. So like, I don't know. It's kind of understandable. Like, you have to look at it both ways.
What would benefit consumers the most about this?
I don't know, maybe knowing more.
More knowledge, more knowledge. Thank you for your time today.
A lot of interesting perspectives from the students on campus. And I guess what we got from that is the biggest problem is that people do not understand and have the lack of knowledge about the issue. And apparently now we have Nate live at the Des Moines airport with 2 students who experienced this just this break. Nate?
Thanks, Nick. I'm live here at the Des Moines International Airport, Channel Nate News, joined here by the Grace brothers. Can you tell me a little bit about your story?
Well, Nate, we were trying to get home to see Graham in Florida when we got to the airport, and unfortunately they overbooked our flight. So they had no volunteers, so they gave us a voucher, and we still don't know when we're gonna get home to see Graham.
Were you shocked by this? Did you know this is how it worked?
Yeah, I mean, like my brother said, we got a voucher and we really didn't know what was going on. We were just sitting there waiting to board our flight, and all of a sudden they called up our names and we went up and they said we were getting a voucher and we'll be on the next flight. And we called up our parents. We were freaking out because we didn't know when we were going to get home for Thanksgiving dinner. So we were just sitting there. We got on our flight late and we got to Thanksgiving late and we almost missed it. So.
How do you guys feel as consumers? Is your story out there? Are people protecting you guys?
I'm glad our story is finally being heard. That it's not just being shoved underneath the rug.
I mean, I hope that someone does something about this. I hope that whoever's in charge of taking care of this really sees this and really takes care of it.
So, do you guys think a better CAP program could be there, or what do you guys think about that?
I think that maybe a faster system and more efficient ways of getting people who get overbooked and bump off their flights on a quicker flight or something, just so they don't have to wait around as long. Because I mean, money can't replace like a precious memory like Thanksgiving with your Graham. So.
And nobody wants to miss Thanksgiving with their Graham. Back to you, Nick.
Nate always does know what to say. Now it's good to hear that the Grace brothers got home, but if you look here, we have a live look-in at the Grace brothers who ended up having to stay the night, and for a while were stuck in the cold because they weren't sure what to do, like they said. Now I'm glad that they got home, like I said, but if we look back, according to Financial Post, in the first quarter, Air Canada filled 81.5% of seats, and 15 years ago, that number was 68.6%. Now how do they do this? They have a very complicated and intense software that has algorithms that they run numbers and figure out over 365 days what the expected passengers are and the time, the holiday time, and so on. And so they pick out how many tickets to sell at the beginning, the last minute flights, and then adjust for people who are going to not show up to their flight. And Air Canada expects to earn more than $100 million per year with this new software that they laid out. And then they also said that most of the bump flyers are infrequent flyers who buy the lowest fare. So if you look at it, and if you could think about it, that's mostly college kids who go home on maybe Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, and for students who are not from the United States and have to go across country, that could be detrimental for them if they get bumped off their flight and then have to wait 2, 3, 4 days. And a problem around the holidays again is that weather can come into play. For instance, you get bumped from your flight at noon, all of a sudden around 3, 4 o'clock, the snowstorm rolls in, and then everything that you would potentially get on gets delayed. Now the information that we have is that Law 14 CFR 250 was put into place by a New York lawyer, Elliot Blanchard, and he was kind of the front runner to the consumer movement under the overbooking. Now, not much has gone on since then, and it was put into place in the 1970s. Now, there's good that came from this, and there's bad. The good is that we'll go through the process. First, airlines will ask for volunteers. I'm sure you've heard of that. The airlines coming on the intercom and asking for volunteers, like I've said earlier. Now, when that doesn't happen, they use their algorithm to bump flyers. And when it happens when they bump flyers, this is the process they go through. If there's another flight that will arrive within 2 hours of the last flight's landing, the cap is set to that $400 that the airline must provide, or that's the most they have to provide. And then if no flight is found, the airline has to pay up to $800. But the thing is, in the 1970s, that was the number that they put in place. So now, adjusting with inflation, that doesn't account for some of these tickets. You know, you can have a $400, $500, $600 flight alone one way, and if you get bumped off that flight, you may not be able to return because there's no other flights, and so that could be thousands, $1,200. And so we think that, you know, the numbers should be adjusted with inflation, because this is a good idea that they've put in already. We understand that the airlines are a business, but it just does not fit with inflation. Next, we want more knowledge. We want the passengers to be informed. This is, in fact, breaking the consumer right to be informed, and we want them to be able to know when they get to the airport what's going to happen, when they get bumped what's going to happen, and what the next steps after are. And we hope that through this segment today that you learned a little bit, and I believe after the commercial break we got a live look into the Iowa-Michigan State game.